Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. It looks like we have about 92 participants on the meeting, so we will start the meeting. So John Decker is out at some directors meetings, and he will also be out next Friday as well for director meetings. So we have a pretty packed agenda for you. John will be back on the 24th, or excuse me, the 25th of this month to present for coffee. So today we're gonna have Michael Mercado present his sign of the week in Deaf Culture 101. We have a vendor spotlight for Best Buddies. Michelle's going to be presenting. Carly's going to give us an update on our DSP collaborative. So she'll kind of share some visuals for you guys there and let you know what's going on there. I have some updates on our acknowledgement forms and the newest directive that came out April 1st. And then I know a lot of providers are logging on for our HCBS grant discussion with our HCBS team. So we'll go ahead and get started. I know we're going to start that at 11:30 to give you guys enough time to ask questions and for them to cover some topics for you. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Michael so that he can do his presentation on our sign of the week.
Should I spotlight myself, Michelle?
Yes, Michael spotlights himself, correct.
Okay. Perfect. Hello, good morning. Happy Friday. All right, our signs of the week. I want you to imagine you have these different programs that you're a part of. So I'll give you some signs that might help with day programs and employment programs. We're going to split those up into 3 different signs. We have day, employment, and program. All right, ready? So first, you're going to have your pointer finger, non-dominant hand flat, and that's day. Yeah, pretty easy, right? Next is going to be job or employment. And then next will be program. So this one's a little bit more challenging. You're going to start with your dominant hand is going to make a P as in Paul. So that's what that looks like. Non-dominant hand is going to be flat. You're going to start on palm side and go up over to the back of your hand. Yep, so you're going to be behind first and then come over to the front. And so this is what it's going to look like for you. We'll do those again. So day, employment, and then program. Great. Good job, everyone. And I'll send out that link for you to be able to practice. Okay, for Deaf Culture 101. We're going to talk about the word Deaf Plus. That might be a new term for you all. We've known everyone here for a few years. So now I'm going to talk about what Deaf Plus is. This refers to deaf people who also have 1 or more additional disabilities. So this is not an identity. You don't identify as Deaf Plus. It's just used to describe deaf individuals who might need some added support due to their disabilities. So some examples of someone who might be Deaf Plus. It might be a deaf person with autism. Could be a deaf person with an intellectual disability. Could be a deaf person who's blind or has low vision. A deaf person with a wheelchair. And obviously that's not an exhaustive list, but that is some examples of someone who might be Deaf Plus. Now, there are some organizations who use the term Deaf Plus, 2 specifically that I'll mention. There's the Deaf Plus Adult Program. And that's in Newark, California. It's near Fremont. So it's the DPAC is the acronym that they use. So they run a day program and an employment program to be able to support Deaf Plus adults with their daily life and work skills. The second organization is the NorCal Services for Deaf and Hard of Hearing. They typically will call it the Excel Deaf Plus Day Program. So that is in Sacramento. They have supportive services for individuals who are deaf with additional disabilities. So these organizations really focus on communication and supporting independence and support for community involvement. They really focus on helping deaf people who have those additional disabilities to offer support persons for personal and professional growth. So you might be wondering, what's the difference between someone who's deaf or hard of hearing and Deaf Plus? So deaf or hard of hearing, they only identify as deaf or hard of hearing. Someone who's Deaf Plus, that means they're deaf with an additional disability. It could be one or more. Someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, they only need American Sign Language and visual access. Someone who is Deaf Plus, they might need some extra support for those additional disabilities. For someone who's deaf and hard of hearing, their services are going to focus on communication, like having an interpreter, using sign language to communicate. Someone who's Deaf Plus, the services are going to focus on both communication and support for those other disabilities. So there's a few examples of how we could have additional support for people who are Deaf Plus. One of those might be visual schedules. It could be pictures or a tablet to help them understand daily routines. So maybe you might have a picture card or a simple visuals that you might put up. Another example would be staff who knows American Sign Language to make sure that there's clear communication, especially for those one-on-one supports, to be able to have someone who knows their communication style and language. Another example might be a deaf interpreter that would be able to help with those complex communication needs. So the deaf interpreter would work with a hearing interpreter to make sure that there is clarity of communication. So for example, if a deaf person has cerebral palsy, sometimes the movements of their hands would be difficult. So oftentimes a hearing interpreter will struggle to understand them. So when we bring in a deaf interpreter who specializes in communication with a person who is deaf and has cerebral palsy, that communication is more efficient. So in summary, why is this important? Deaf people with other disabilities most often will face additional challenges and struggles for accessing services. So it's really important to understand what the correct support would be for them. So this can include language access and some extra help and support to help with those other disabilities, and that will allow them to fully participate in their life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. I'm hoping that you could share really quick with the group what you will be covering next week as far as our emergency cards. Can you just give a quick summary of that? Thank you.
Okay, sure. So Hubert and myself, so Hubert, our emergency coordinator specialist, we've been working together to develop some emergency cards so like right now at my workplace, I'm deaf, I use sign language. So if, let's say Michelle is learning sign language, but if there's an emergency, what would Michelle do? That's more advanced sign language. So we've been setting up some emergency cards with pictures. They have a QR code on them that you'd be able to open YouTube and it shows actual signing. So this is very beneficial for your programs. If you have someone who's deaf or hard of hearing or even nonverbal, to be able to have those ready so that you're prepared in case of emergency. And that's something I will show you more of next week.
Great, thank you so much. All right, thanks, Michael. So what we will be moving on to, it looks like Michelle Gentry from Best Buddies is ready to present. I made you co-host, Michelle, if you have anything to share.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everybody. I appreciate your time. Today, I'm just going to present a short video about what our program is all about here at UC Davis Medical Center. Just pull that up really quick. Give me 1 second, guys. I don't have my mouse today, and it's kind of hard to navigate without it. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. It did not work. I'm sorry about that. So let's see. Well, UC Davis, I think I'm just have to tell you guys about us without the video. I'll send it to you in a link. So what we do here at Best Buddies Project Search, Project Search is an innovative program designed to empower individuals with IDD. So they come into the hospital. It provides some opportunities to gain skills, transferable skills to gain meaningful employment. So we have about 9 or 10 different departments here at UC Davis Medical Center, where the interns, they spend about an hour and a half in class. Then they go out into the hospital to go into those different departments. Kind of like regular employees, they have all the rules, the policies, procedures. They just learn job skills for when they're ready to go out into the workforce. They can bring those transferable skills with them. And our program just kind of bridges the gap between the job seekers, the employers, while boosting the morale at the UC Davis hospitals. We have a couple of interns who are in line for applying for jobs here. They have a different program called Pathway to Employment on site here that they can add additional time to their internship. It is an unpaid internship. We are actively seeking applications right now. Our new, this cohort graduates June 27th, and our next cohort will start August 4th. So if anybody's interested, have any clients they feel would be a good fit, you guys can go ahead and reach out to me. I'm going to put my email address in the chat right here. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Michelle? And Michelle, you'll be able to put that link in there as well, correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna put the link in the video. For some reason, it wouldn't let me play it.
Okay. No questions?
No questions? All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for presenting. Okay, next up on our agenda, we have Carly, who's going to share a little bit about our DSP collab.
Thanks, Michelle. So I'm going to share my screen and go over to our DSP Collaborative Facebook page. We are working on expanding the DSP Collaborative to the 7 LA County Regional Centers. They have all expressed an interest and are interested in using HCBS funds. I am just going to go through some of our recent posts on the DSP Collaborative. We have been working on getting more consistent posts on here. You can see that, we share things that are directly from the DSP Collaborative. We worked with Joey Travolta on several videos that you can find on our DSP Stories tab on the website. So we post those, various informative infographics. And then I've also been working on these DSP staff highlights, along with, the clients they serve, to share more about what a DSP does, where they can go as far as, moving forward in their career. So I am going to go ahead and share this video, and hopefully it works just fine. Michelle Duchesne, will you give me a heads up if you can hear this?
At work as a
Yes,
DSP,
yeah, we're hearing it.
every day is different. I know I just said that, but every day is truly different. We get to go bowling, we get to go grocery shopping, watching you guys learn how to handle money, how to handle the community. It's really something special.
We do it and we have dance parties and everything safe.
That was that there were dance parties on Tuesdays. The captions weren't entirely accurate. But yeah, so I've been working on these DSP stories. This one obviously was someone who started as a DSP and shared where their beginnings as a DSP took them. I'm still looking for more DSPs to highlight in future videos. So if you have anyone on your team that would be interested, please reach out to me. That was our second DSP that we've highlighted. We also highlighted one from InAlliance. I would love to get stories from DSPs and all other types of programs, residential settings, SLS, transportation. So please, if you have anyone that would be interested, reach out to me and I'll put my email in the chat.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Carly? No, okay, thank you, Carly. I'm glad to see that's expanding through our other regional centers in the state. So thank you so much for your work on that. I wanted to share, I put the link in the chat because I wanted to be mindful of time because I want to give our HCBS team enough time to support you guys in your questions. I'm going to share my screen and I wanted to chat about the most recent directive that came out. So is everyone seeing my screen, the directive? Thumbs up, anybody? Yes? Okay, perfect. So I highlighted a few things here that I just wanted to update everybody on. So this was a directive that came out April 1st, and it's talking about the service acknowledgement forms, our QIP, our Quality Incentive Program, and the provider directory updates. So I highlighted this key part right here that I wanted to share with everyone, that the revised deadline for the acknowledgement forms has now been moved to May 30th. An update on our end, we have finalized most of it. We're doing the final run through on Monday. So my team will be sending those out to all providers starting Wednesday morning. So that is our goal, to start on the 16th in the morning to send these and get these out to you guys. So one of the things that we are required to do is, and why we're sending these out, we're not waiting through May 30th as that deadline, is the regional center is now required to submit a percentage of completion of acknowledgement forms. And we will be sharing these throughout coffee as well as we go through the month. So April 22nd is our first reporting date to tell them what percentage we've completed, May 30th, and then May 13th, and then May 30th. So we will go through that and just provide an update to you guys as well. There's some more information here that I put the link in. You guys can review. If you have questions, please reach out to your specialist or myself. But I wanted to highlight this key part right here that was in the directive. And it's just saying that all active service providers are required to be in the provider directory as part of their vendorization requirements. So regardless of QIP. So if your rate and your service was not in the rate reform, you're still required to access and be part of the provider directory. The department, in coordination with the regional center, will contact service providers that do not submit data to the provider directory to assist with completing this activity. The expectation is that the providers will complete this by May 30th to earn the benchmark rate. Service providers will not be able to earn the QIP portion of the rate beyond this date until the next round of quality incentive measures, which will be July 1st, 2026. So if providers do not meet this rate May 30th date and they are at the 90% of the rate, they will not have an option to get 100% of the rate until the next opening of that, which is July 1st of 2026. And then I wanted to highlight this right here as well. Service providers that do not submit the required information in the provider directory by the May 30th date will have their billing suspended beginning July 2025 until they submit this information and it is validated. So please, I will put the link for the DDS website, the provider directory. Please reach out to them. We have a flyer we can link as well that just gives you, it's dds.ca, DDS, and it's a provider directory, and I'll get that direct email to you guys. So we just are urging you guys to, if you feel that you've completed the provider directory, please log back in and make sure there's nothing pending there for you. Our department is reviewing and approving or rejecting things based on additional documentation needed. So we're just recommending that every provider, please go in there, whether you think you've done it or not, please make sure that there's nothing pending for you guys further. And I will stop sharing my screen on that and see if anybody has any questions on that.
Hi, Michelle. I have a quick question. I might have missed it if you mentioned it, but with the provider directory, we originally submitted all of our vendor corrections on the first go around, and it looks like the site did a refresh that it has that information saved, but it doesn't show us submitting anything. Would you say we need to resubmit that vendor information to make sure it's accurate, well, like fully there? Or if it has the accurate information in there, we don't need to do anything anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes, so I would recommend that you follow up, log back in. You can always provide your information to myself too. We have on our team, we can look on our side to see if there's anything pending. We can look up your provider information and see if we're still pending something as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I think, Carly, would you mind, do you have the provider directory flyer that we can put in the chat with the contact information for DDS?
Yeah, not a problem. I'll get that loaded onto the into the chat.
Perfect, thank you. And just a reminder, so we have no ability to change anything in the provider directory. So we're recommending, and we do have to be persistent, right? Sharing or following up with the department on those inquiries to change. We're seeing where the incorrect vendor number or the regional center was identified. And we recommend, we can't change anything in the provider directory. We can help advocate and reach out as well. But it's really that first step is to reach out to DDS for that. They are recommending, Carly's going to put the flyer in the chat, that when you do reach out to them, you let them know your vendor name, your vendor number, the contact information, so that they can get a hold of you and they can generate that link for your access to the provider directory. An update from, I shared at PAC yesterday, and a little update for new providers. So new providers will be ongoing as providers are vendorized. They will, within approximately a month or so, when DDS pulls their reports through our SANDIS system, they will identify those new providers and share a link with new providers that you guys have 45 days to get on that link and register for the provider directory. So that is an update on that end as well. Does anyone else have any questions? Let me see here. So it looks like there's a question. I don't know if Helen is on regarding the early intervention, the service code 805 with updated acknowledgements forms. Are you looking for information on the acknowledgement forms or just a specific job description requirement for the early intervention services?
Just the specific job requirements. We have some RBTs that are starting, and they're starting for this program as well, and we're not sure if they're qualified. And it's not super specific.
Okay, I can put, if Helen's on, I don't know if you want to speak to that, or we can always, I can put Helen's email in the chat. And if you want to reach out, that is her unit. If you want to reach out to her, and she can provide additional information for you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably something that we should discuss individually.
Thank you. So just as the acknowledgements come out, if you guys are seeing any errors or you see we've added some additional QA, so we're hoping that everything is correct. Our mail merge works successfully, and so we are double checking everything. We have specialists verifying information prior to them going out. However, if you do receive something, please reach out to your specialist. Please include me. We will be looking at those, updating anything that needs to be corrected moving forward. Once those acknowledgement forms are signed and we have them, accounting will begin processing the change of the service codes, the subcodes, and you'll be moving from the transitional rates to the post-transitional rates. So that acknowledgement will start that transition. Anything that is a retro payment will be completed prior to the fiscal year ending. So I just verified that with accounting. We still are on time for that timeline as well. And for the ABA vendor, I will, if you want to reach out to Helen Neary, I just put her email in the chat and she'll be able to connect with you regarding who your specialist is or support you in that as well. All right. Thank you very much. So now we will pass it over to Kylie and Alicia. I've made you both co-hosts so you can present about the HCBS grants.
Perfect. Good morning.
Good
I'm Alicia.
morning.
Good morning. My name's Alicia Van Eck, and I'm here with Kylie Draper. We're two of the HCBS specialists here at Alta, and we're going to talk about our grants. We had sent out a letter on March 18th, and we've sort of been promoting the grants, but we're going to get into the nitty gritty and help you guys polish up what you have and come up with some ideas. So we will we'll be covering a lot of information, and then at the end, we'll have time for questions.
Amazing. Alrighty. So just to get started, let's just kind of introduce what HCBS is, because that is where these grants fall under. HCBS is home and community-based services. So these are services provided in a person's home or community rather than institutions or isolated settings. This includes regional center funded care homes, day programs, employment programs, and other independent living situations. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, are we seeing my screen?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. So under the HCBS regulations, there are 10 federal regulations. All 10 apply to residential facilities, and the first 5 are for day programs. So quickly, I'm just going to go over what these regulations or requirements are, because when you do your grant proposals, the grant proposals have to directly address one of these or multiple of these requirements. So requirement 1 is access to community. Federal requirement 2 is choice of setting. Federal requirement 3 is the right to be treated well. Federal requirement 4 is independence. Requirement 5, choice of services and supports. Requirement 6 is residential agreement. Requirement 7 is privacy. Requirement 8 is schedule and access to food. Requirement 9 is the right to visitors. And requirement 10 is accessibility. Okay, so those are the requirements for when you send in your grant proposals. That one of those requirements has to be hit on. So a quick overview of the grants. The Department of Developmental Services notified regional centers of the process for use of available grant funding. Alta Regional Center was allotted $892,000, about that much, to support HCBS compliance. In total, all regional centers were given $15 million total statewide. And then I will share this link. Let's see. Okay, so this is just showing which each regional center was allotted for their grant funding. I'm showing this because I know multiple of our vendors are vendored through different regional centers. So if you're vendored through different regional centers, you have different access to these funds. So we are at the top, and then it just kind of shows the display of funding throughout. So there's that. The funds are used to assist in compliance with federal home and community-based services, which is those final rule HCBS regulations. We are asking that the grant proposals are due back to us, the HCBS team, by April 18th, which is next Friday. So you guys have a full week. We ask that you send in those grant proposals to our email, which we can drop in the chat right now. And then we do ask that if you're not a vendor currently, please submit an LOI to Community Services before submitting the grant proposal. And then I will toss it over to Alicia.
Hi. So I'm going to I dropped in the handout from Kylie about the federal requirements so you guys can see what those HCBS regulations are. So you know what kind of grant proposals we are looking for, ones that have to do with the proposals. And yes, an LOI is a letter of intent. You intend, if you want a grant, you have to intend to be a vendor of the regional center. So submit those at the same time as your grant proposal if you are interested in these funds and you are not yet a vendor. So the first thing I'm going to drop into the chat is our handout. So this is sort of like notes for everybody to follow along with, to make sure that you guys can pay attention and have notes in front of you. So if you give me 1 second. Okay. So there should be a handout in the chat that sort of like covers what we're going to be covering today. And then I'm also going to drop in our original letter that we had sent out on March 18th so that I can cover that as well, because that went out 3 weeks ago. It's compliance letter. Okay, so I'm going to open up this compliance letter and let you know what the goals of the HCBS grants are and what DDS specifically has made for our grant proposals. Okay. Which window am I picking? Wow. Nope, not that one. Sorry, guys. It shrunk up on me when I'm picking a window. This one. Okay. All right, so this is the letter that we sent out on March 18th. Grants were proposed. DDS sent us the list on March 14th to let us know how much funding we would have. And so DDS really wants us to be, they've identified priorities for use for these funds. So we want to establish or continue teams to work with and monitor service providers to maintain full compliance with all applicable HCBS regulations. They'd like to see us establishing or continuing peer-led teams to engage with individuals served and their families so that we can receive feedback on service provider implementation of HCBS rules. We want to focus on providers who are at risk of not being able to maintain compliance. We want to establish or maintain local communities of practice, which increase knowledge and implementation of best practices and encourage collaborative groups to foster shared learning and solution-focused discussion. We want to engage families and individuals served, including education and training for families, support professionals and providers on best practices for aligning services with the HCBS final rule. We want to work on creating and implementing innovative pathways and provider practices which support community inclusion, individual rights, and individual choice, highlighting a whole person approach to service delivery. And we want to work on developing person-centered thinking trainers from within existing regional center staff to encourage and increase knowledge and skills among regional center staff so that we are working person-centered. I think the main takeaway is that DDS would like us to move towards person-centered approaches and ensure that our grants are working towards HCBS compliance. If programs and homes aren't in compliance, that affects us because HCBS regulations are put out by the Centers for Medicaid and Medicaid Care Services, which is federal regulations, and it could affect our funding if we are not compliant. Okay. And I think Kylie's going to give some examples of some projects that we have done in the past.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to say this is going to be a really great tool for everybody to use because it's going to show you past projects that we have worked on. So let me share this screen. Okay, so this is the grant handout that we are going to be putting in the chat. All of you are going to be able to access this. And then here you're going to see 2 links. That was the priorities that Alicia just touched on. And then here you're going to see examples of past projects. So when you click on this link, It's going to take you to DDS's website, and you're going to see HCBS compliance funding. And when you click through, so we're currently in fiscal year 24-25, so there's no projects here listed because that's what we're applying for right now. But if you go to past years, here you're going to see initial funding plans by regional center, and it lists all the regional centers out. So this is a really great tool to go and check out what past grant projects that we have done, and it shows you like an idea of how much that they requested and then what their project was. So here you see in a bathroom addition to increase privacy and access within the home, vehicle for day program to provide timely and consistent community access. And the cool thing about this is it's not just our regional center, it's all the regional centers. So you can kind of look at what is being done statewide. Let's see another one. And seeing where their funds are being spread out to. So, and this also gives you an idea of how much people are generally requesting for different projects. So again, this is the website. It's going to pop you up here, and then you can click through the different fiscal years and check out past grant projects here. And then this is going to be found on this grant guideline worksheet that we're going to be handing out. So with that, I just want to share some cool past projects that we've done that we felt were really interesting. And again, I know we're asking for some creativity. It's really cool to see new projects pop up, and you guys are awesome, and you have sent in really interesting projects. So some that we have highlighted is a program hired and trained a certified person-centered thinking trainer to provide on-site training to their employees. And this trainer worked to ensure that all individuals that attended program had a person-centered plan. The trainer also worked to change the culture of the program to be more person-centered and allowed for more flexibility within participants. We had a provider work to develop a CEU course focused on HCBS regulations. Certified with DDS, this provider was able to offer the class virtually statewide. CEU courses are hard to come by and are a requirement of many vendors, so that was another cool one. We had a first responders program, which allowed opportunities for both individuals with special needs and their support team and community resource groups to meet, share, and explore solution-focused ideas and trainings with local police and first responders. We had a provider create a van carpool with members of the community to help support individuals who live independently or have natural supports that don't get to go to events such as Special Olympics. So they would be able to take them to different really cool events. So again, that link to the DDS website is going to be able to give you some inspiration on potential projects that you can work on, as well as kind of be able to hone in how much people have asked for in the past as far as different projects such as vans or training projects. And it kind of gives you a good idea of what we've funded in the past, but also potentially what we could fund for this year. And then again, it's on the link. That link is in the handout that we're dropping in the chat.
I've also directly dropped the link into the chat too. So the handout is it's in there called HCBS grant handout. And all of the links to everything will be in there. Lindsay, there's no regulation about vehicles not being funded. In fact, last year we funded 6, and the year before we funded 5. We get about 60 vehicles requested a year. Last year we ended up with like $8 million in requests for $800,000 in funding, and the year before that I think it was like $16 million requested. We do our best to spread out the grants throughout regions and throughout how many people it's going to affect. So there is no rule about no vehicles. We just have had a lot of other projects that we have prioritized funding that may be better, but we do fund vehicles every single year. Okay, so if I move on, I'm going to talk a little bit about what components don't meet an HCBS need, which I think is important too. we get a lot of requests for items that don't meet an HCBS need, that don't support HCBS compliance. Sometimes they, like individuals and providers, don't understand HCBS regs fully. So if you guys have questions about if your project that you have an idea for meets the need, please email our HCBS inbox. But I'm just going to give a few examples. Staff uniforms we get requests for, or staffing incentives, paying for food at a staff meeting, or buying gift cards for staff who are doing well. Those don't typically apply to HCBS funds. Supplies for business, like decorations for your office or equipment that only staff is going to be using, those typically don't apply. And I won't say never, because you could tie anything to HCBS if you try hard enough. But paying off already purchased items or business loans, like we've had individuals submit and say, oh, I have $800,000 in business loans and I want to be able to pay those back. Those don't typically qualify. Um, Items for use on site at a non-licensed community-based program. So if you have a non-licensed community-based program, but you want items for individuals to use inside a building that you are purchasing, then that is not HCBS typically. And ongoing business expenses such as rent, electricity, internet, those things aren't typically funded. So HCBS can be applied to speech therapy. And I mean, none of these projects are for housing programs. That first link I dropped in the chat, the federal requirements, those are the HCBS regulations that we tie these grants to. So if you look through and you can find a way for your service to tie into HCBS regs to help improve our regional center in any of those discussions, then feel free to apply. We've also gotten requests about food banks, domestic violence shelters, things like that. Those are typically not HCBS focused. So we are really looking to increase the rights of individuals with developmental disabilities federally, by allowing individuals to access the community and to have privacy in their sleeping units, and to be able to lock their door, and to be able to help choose which staff that they're using. So all of keep those things in mind when you are applying, but anyone can apply for an HCBS grant.
Being said too, I just really quickly want to interject and say, if you have an idea, feel free to reach out to our team separately in an email. And then a lot of times we can kind of make things apply. Like if you have an idea and you're like, I think it might apply, but I'm not too sure, just reach out, because we can kind of help make it apply if that's a possibility.
Yeah, and we don't typically fund the general operating expenses. Those are typically not included, because those are, you're already getting funded through those through your vendorization and your purchases of service.
So another thing that DDS looks at is how many people are impacted by the grant that's being proposed. So DDS looks at how many people are impacted for each grant project, and we are really trying to impact as many individuals as possible with these funds. So we like to see projects spread throughout all over our 10 counties in our catchment area. And so if you're in an outlying area, that is a great opportunity to expand upon, resources for individuals out there, because oftentimes those areas lack resources. So if that's just a little thing I like to highlight, we like to see the grant funds kind of spread all over the counties.
Yeah, and to answer questions, you can send in multiple proposals or proposals with more than one component. That's fine. Lots of people have lots of ideas and they throw out all of their ideas and see what sticks. And grant proposals are due to the Regional Center by 4/18/2025. If you did not receive the initial letter on March 18th, 2025, then it is likely that your email address in your vendor file is not up to date, because it was sent to every vendor of Regional Center. So ensure to reach out to your specialist and make sure that your email address is up to date, so that you are getting these questions, these
Then
documents.
On that note too, oftentimes we see like large grant proposals with many different parts, like Alicia just said. And what we would do is, the team would see which parts are applicable and pick out of that. So if you have like a large amount of money you're requesting, but it has different projects within it, we can kind of extract out of there different projects. And if you don't want the whole thing or whatever that might be.
And then also our applicants, like it varies per year. So far we have 7 applications that total almost up to our full $800,000. But some years we get $20,000 for proposals, or $20 million in proposals. And some years we get $1 million in proposals. And they're of all different types and styles. So feel free to submit what you have. And then Kylie is going to talk about the proposals and what needs to be included in them. There is no specific format. Like I don't have a form that you fill out. But we do have requirements for what should be in there. As far as the time frame for acceptance, we have to review all of the proposals, find which ones are HCBS compliant, and send those to DDS by May 9th. And then DDS will get back to us. All of these, because this is a grant year 2024, 2025, all of these grants have to be in contract by the end of this fiscal year. So they will all be in contract by June 30th, 2025. And the grant funding runs through April of 2027. So we will have almost 2 years to do the grants. The grants are, I should talk about reimbursement funding. Yeah, Kylie? So the grants are, these are reimbursement grants. So the provider pays upfront for the items or the staffing and sends invoices to Alta, and we pay them back within 30 days. So if you want to buy a vehicle, let's say, you would go out and buy the vehicle, submit the documentation to Regional Center, and we would fund you within 30 days, like before any interest starts racking up on a vehicle. Providers are required to submit invoices with supporting receipts for each purchase. So if it's staffing time, then we need copies of pay stubs. If it's a van, we need copies of receipts. Providers anything purchased outside of the grant budget, like if you have a budget and a scope of work that says that you're buying these specific items for these specific costs, anything that's outside of that initial contract for items that you can buy is not the Regional Center, is not funded by the Regional Center. And anything outside of the grant budget, so if you budgeted yourself 100,000 and it ends up costing 110,000, that money is also not reimbursed by the Regional Center, because we have we put in for every single penny. We don't leave a bubble or gap for people, because we want to make sure we are funding as many things as we can.
Okay, so let me share the initial provider letter that was sent out. Okay, you're seeing my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So these are what you're going to want to include in your grant proposals. So right here, it walks you through it. So you're going to be identifying and addressing a true barrier to CMS or HCBS compliance. So again, that is one of those 10 federal regulations that I had started out with. So you want to specifically address which one you're going to be asking for your grant proposal to be on. So then providing detailed information on your proposal or on your proposed request and which area of the department noted priorities will be the focus of the proposal. So we also have the priorities listed right here earlier in this grant letter. And this was the letter that was sent out initially, which we can again drop in the chat again, or you can reach out and we could send it directly to you. We ask that you be specific. So how many clients or individuals will this be impacting? If requesting items, describe how the requested item will assist with compliance. If requesting staff training, please provide additional details like number of people who will be trained, who will be providing the training, just kind of specifications such as that. If proposal includes more than one component, identify cost estimate for each item separately. This is so we may pull out different proposed ideas within the grant if we don't end up awarding the full grant. Identify all related costs and include those in the request. So if you ask for a vehicle, also specify requests for insurance, registration, mileage, maintenance, things like that. Proposal can be for a startup cost, such as to launch a new service in lieu of non-compliant program. If this is your intention, please submit the proposal of the new service to community services first, as I had previously said. And then if you are selected, do you have the capacity to complete the reporting requirements for the regional center and DDS? We meet with all of our grant participants quarterly. We ask that they submit quarterly reports and updates to us, and then we do have meetings pretty consistently. I would say the line of communication between our grant people is pretty open. And then the proposal must not exceed term of funding, which is 2 years, so 2027. The grant projects must be completed by then. And if the proposal would involve a long-term cost, the program must be prepared to fund the proposal on an ongoing basis. So these are all the items that you want to identify in your grant proposals. We don't have like a specific layout because you can kind of make this your own. So just as long as these items are included, and then again at the top were the priorities that were kind of highlighted by DDS, and then this was the initial grant letter that was sent out. And then one last thing I did want to mention is that just ensure that you have requested enough funding for your project. And if your project is chosen, you will only have that amount, as Alicia said, that you requested for the project. So any cost above or beyond the grant amount will not be covered by the regional center through the contract that we have written for you guys. So that was pretty much it. I think we can take questions now if anyone has any specific questions.
So to answer Mark's question, last year we got about $15 million in requests, and we were granted that $862.20, like $862,020 for Alta. Both of those amounts are listed on the DDS website, so you can see how much money for each regional center was allotted, and then you can see how the breakdown of our funds were spent. And again, I just dropped that in the chat again. If you are unaware of how many people your project will be impacting, you can give your best guess and put that in there. As far as federal or state funding, this is state funding. These funds started in 2016, and they were supposed to be a one-time only in 2016 to help bring the state into compliance, because HCBS regulations were supposed to be passed back in 2016, but it took until 2023 to get the regulations in place. So they have continued these funding, but we are unaware if it's going to continue next year because of our state budget. These are not federal funds for grants. These are state funds that are coming from the Department of Developmental Services. The letter is in the chat. I think it's in there 3 or 4 times now. It's called Provider's Letter. That was the original letter that went out, and then Kylie just dropped the HCBS grant handout again in the chat. I think both of those are in the chat 2 or 3 times. The Provider's Letter is the letter that originally went out on the 18th, and the grant handout has a lot of the information that we have covered today. So we will have additional trainings and meetings. If you are awarded a grant, you will hear back from us, and we will let you know you're awarded, and we will set up follow-up meetings to develop a scope of work and a timeline and all of that, and write our big long contract for the grant. And if you are not awarded a grant, you will also receive a letter in the mail stating why you didn't, and have the opportunity to meet with us and talk about why you weren't awarded the grant. If you have questions in the meantime, though, please email us at hcbs@altaregional.org, and we are more than happy to answer any grant-related questions.
And even set up meeting times. I know we have both been meeting with providers here and there that want to talk, privately or specifically with us. We are pretty responsive, so feel free to shoot us an email at the HCBS inbox. And let's see.
Yeah, and if you can't download those documents that are in the chat, please email us too, because we can drop those in a email too. The federal requirements, the original grant letter, and the handout that we have with the links.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I know that we're getting close to time, but we're able to stay over a few minutes longer if you guys have any questions for our HCBS team. No? Okay. Thank you so much, Alicia and Kylie. Always, yeah, definitely reach out to the HCBS inbox, and they will be able to support you with any further questions. I wanted to share one last event that John he requested that I share. So give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. Are you guys seeing the 6-bed advocacy day? Yes. I can't see anybody. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So John wanted me to share this with you guys. He will be speaking at this event. So it looks like on April 21st, there is a 6-bed 11th advocacy day. So advocating for safe and affordable quality residential care. I will put this screenshot. I don't have a link, unfortunately, but I will put this screenshot in the chat. It's at www.6beds.org, so you guys can go there. It's a live Zoom meeting, so we wanted to share that as well with you guys. So let me get that in the chat. Scott, Helen, is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on?
Sorry, I don't think so. Just that, we could give a quick update. Each CBS team is out, as everybody knows, and doing their assessments for the year. We're so far at 16%. So we'll be starting to share our progress here bit by bit. We've got 560 locations identified this year so far. And I would say that, we can hang on a couple of minutes beyond. And if there's anybody that has questions for HCBS grants, given that there's only a week left to get in those proposals, we can stick on for a few minutes and see if there's any further conversation that needs to happen. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we'll hold back. Thank you guys for joining. Like I said, John will be out again next Friday, but we will be sharing some additional updates on acknowledgement forms, rate reform, and HCBS. Just maybe an update if there is one on how many applications we've received thus far, and then anything else that's going on. So we'll hold off a little bit, and anyone that's not interested in asking questions can log off. Thank you guys. Have a good weekend.
I have a question. Do you want me to put it in the chat or do you want me to just ask it?